Hi, I'm Josh Hellon. I'm the Monitoring and Research Manager at the Wildlife Trust, Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire and Northamptonshire. And so basically what that means is that I'm involved in organising all the surveys for wildlife and reporting and all that kind of thing. But also I'm a commercial drone pilot and I supervise all the drone work at the Trust and get out quite regularly myself. I've been doing that for about 8 years now. So I've been asked to come along to talk about how drones work and my experiences of using them and the sort of camera work that I've been doing with them. So yeah, hence the title of the talk. And if you look there, that's my basic drone setup there with built-in camera on a gimbal there on a DJI Phantom drone. So I'll get started. Just find the pointer. There we go. So what I'm going to go through is just talk about the use of drones at our Wildlife Trust, when we started using drones, why we use them for conservation, a little bit on the training and legislation involved if you want to get involved with this kind of work. We'll talk about the equipment, the hardware, talk about the software, the sort of processing software for the imagery, and I'll give a few case studies of how we use these things for conservation, and then I'll just talk about where we think it's going to go next. So how did we get started with all this? The first drones that we used back in 2015, so quite early days of drone work. We were given some funding by Natural England to basically go out and buy a drone and get trained at the Great Fen, which is a large habitat restoration, sort of rewilding project up near Peterborough. Something I'm sure many of you will be aware of. Excellent place to go and take photographs, particularly of raptors and you know, really amazing landscapes. We knew very little at the time. We were given the money, knew very little about drone technology, very little about legislation, and we were bought. This was our setup. It was a DJI Phantom 2, which is now fairly obsolete, and a smartphone, and we ran it all from there. There was no fancy software to fly the drone automatically. There was no fancy processing software. We just used Photoshop and did the best we could. And if you look here, very early image, nice quality image, but really obvious fisheye lens effect, which a lot of the early drones had. They had really wide angle lenses. So the distortion there was an issue really for our kind of work. But we could see as an amazing opportunity for this technology for the future. We could really see how it could be used, especially on a huge site like the Great Fen. So that gets into why would we use these? Why would we start doing it? It became fairly obvious. You'll have seen possibly on a YouTube channel lots of videos of our nature reserves. So when I go out surveying, I will usually take a bit of video as well, and you can easily turn it into a two-minute film showing what that nature reserve looks like from an angle people haven't seen. It's a great way to get more people interested in our sites. It's a great way to show funders what we've done and how we manage them. In the same way, big panoramic photos of our nature reserves are an amazing opportunity to be able to show people why is this such an important site? Why is it such a beautiful site? And so they appear in our magazines and various publicity. For me, sort of from a science point of view, the mapping was really the exciting thing for me. It was the ability to go out and do true aerial imagery like this in the middle here and look at how a reserve is changing over time, map habitats, and this stuff was only ever available from aeroplane and satellite footage before, and at great cost. So yeah, fairly self-explanatory. So this is a classic panorama. I'm sure many of you use panorama stitching software. So what I'll do, I'll fly the drone up to around 200-300 feet and then just rotate 360 degrees, taking taking a number of photos with a bit of an overlap, and then you get the software to stitch it cleverly together. You get a few little imperfections, and it's obviously slightly distorted, but you're getting this amazing panoramic image of a nature reserve. Cooper's Hill there with its heather in bloom, Godman Chester there with some of the wader scrapes for wading birds and some of the wetland areas. Old Sulahay Stone Pit, another nice site in Northampton. Then if we move on, the obvious use of drones, get some nice video footage. Like this should work. Click there. I don't know what the quality will come out like, but basically it's high definition video, and it's getting better all the time. I lose track, 4K, 5K. So yeah, the more you spend on the drone, obviously better you can get, better sensors, better cameras. But this is fairly old technology, but still you're getting incredibly smooth, apart from my flying. However wobbly your flying is, there's a gimbal that attaches the camera and takes out most of the camera shake, and also allows you to move the camera up and down as well. For the rest of your camera movements, you're literally just moving the drone around what you want to film. So it's very nice. Feels kind of like handheld, but you're doing it from a screen rather than from actually holding the camera. So it's I imagine it would be second nature for a lot of people involved in photography. And just thought I'd show you another one. This was a nice opportunity. Went to one of our reserves called Lilbourne Meadows, new one that we've acquired. And it snowed when I got there. I thought, oh, I can't do anything now, but we had the drone. And as soon as the sun came out, had a perfect opportunity to see the site blanketed in snow and really demonstrate the scale of it to anybody who's interested, really, and anybody who's involved on the site. Big thing with new nature reserves is getting people excited about it and convincing them it's a place worth visiting, and this kind of imagery is incredibly useful for that. It just looks rather dramatic as well. So you can see nice smooth camera motions again, really down to just making sure you fly slowly and neatly, basically, and don't make sudden movements, and edit those bits out if you do. Right, so very briefly just touch on this because I'm sure it'll be of interest to some of you if you are looking to move into this kind of work. So if you use a drone and you're making money, or you're getting something from the drone use, you are considered commercial and therefore need to apply for permission from the Civil Aviation Authority. And part of that means you need to pass a commercial course. You need to do a flight test, a driving test, basically. And what that allows you is to fly a small-ish drone. Although 7 kilograms is pretty big, it allows you to fly pretty much anything other than a military drone, something like that. It also usually only allows you to fly within sight of, well, so you can see the drone, basically, line of sight, unless you go for a special additional test. So, but that's enough for most uses. And there are recent changes to this. I did this years ago, but there have been changes due to leaving the EU, and just changes over time as well in licensing. In fact, if you're flying a drone under 250 grams, which includes things like the Mavic Mini, then you don't need commercial. You don't need permission from the CAA, but you may struggle to get insurance. So it's a tricky one. And if you want to maintain this commercial license, you need to get proper insurance. You need to register your drone. In fact, everyone with the drone needs to register it. You need to record how often you fly. You need to write and review an operation manual, although your trainer will do that for you. And you need to apply every year, again, for your license. report crashes and things that are inevitable, and abide by your sort of company's guidance as well if you're working for a company. So there's quite a lot in it to keep it ticking along, but yeah, you get the hang of it in the end. Right, so equipment. So you could spend an absolute fortune, but really, you know, it's well under £1,000 worth of kit there, and does everything that I need. And you could, even for less, actually, you could get started quite easily for sort of £200-300. Now that the prices have come down. So what we've got here, quadcopter, which is a 4-propeller drone. Lots of batteries. As you know, camera operators, I'm sure you're used to having lots of batteries. Drones absolutely plow through them, and they're rechargeable, but you know, you might need 8 or 9 batteries out just to do a day's work. So little takeoff platform, just so I don't, for long grass and things. Yes, it's a lid off a box. A controller, just normal radio control for when you're doing manual flying. Rotor blades, you can get through a few of those. They do get damaged. This thing's a signal amplifier, which is a fancy name for a piece of tinfoil that helps with reception. iPad, way better than anything else for drones at the moment. The software's better and they link up better at the moment, but I'm sure Android's getting there. Few tools. I've got spirit level there to make sure it's level so I can calibrate cameras and things and gimbals. And polarized sunglasses, because you spend a whole lot of time squinting into the sun wondering where the drone's gone. So yeah, you need those. And okay, so if I get just briefly into flight software, what you've got is your video and photo software, which is quite straightforward down here. Gives you a live feed from your drone, and it will be either it'll allow you to do manual work, so you can set all of your normal camera settings, white balance and things like that, or it will do all that automatically if you want. But also there's automatic software that will go out and fly photo and video missions for you, and you know, do it all automatically, but I prefer to do it manually at the moment in that way. The main piece of software you might use is mapping software. So that there's loads of them available. They're all much the same, but basically they fly a grid over an area that you're interested in doing an aerial image of. And I'll get into that in a minute, how that works. The other thing, same software, but you can produce 3D models from this kind of imagery. So yeah, you want to take an aerial image of a site. Basically, you pop a grid over the bit that you're interested in. The drone then takes off, flies to the height that you've set up, flies at the speed that you want, and knows exactly how many images to take and where. And you can sit back and let it do it. Photos will overlap around 90%, so huge overlaps, which allows you to get a really detailed aerial image once they're all sewn together by the computer programs. If you've got really big areas, Fulbourn Fen here in Cambridge, just fly lots of missions, and so you take off from each of these little places, fly a square, and then the computer will happily stitch them together when you get home. And all of this happens by Wi-Fi from your tablet or phone, ideally a tablet. And if anything goes wrong, your drone is set up to return to exactly where it took off. So it will return home, fingers crossed. And even if you completely lose it and it crashes somewhere, you can click a button and it will say, find my drone, and it should take you to it. This just shows you this little Space Invader. Shows you the sort of path that a drone will take when it flies an aerial image, and then takes lots of photos, more than this, stitches them together, takes out all of the differences in white balance and the exposure and everything, and gives you this fancy image called an orthomosaic. From my understanding, an orthomosaic is basically the computer has created a wireframe 3D image of your site, and it's then basically draped the photos over the top of it while it's stitching them together. So there's lots of very clever stuff going on. Takes out all of the distortions from things that might be closer and further away. So also gives you this nice 3D model with the images over the top. And will also give you some clever algorithms will pick out certain habitat types and things like that, which is very useful for us. You can see that just here in the corner. Brief case studies. I won't go into too much detail on them, but you can find more on our website, in our magazines. This is a classic example. Camborne Lakes, we're looking at what's happened in 10 years' time, what's happened, what's changed. So we hand map on a GIS program, a mapping program, where the scrub is, the trees, and where the reed beds are. And then we can work out how those have increased over time and where they are compared to where we were 10 years ago. And that helps us with management. This was a slightly cleverer one, Cherry Hinton Chalk Pit. We used a piece of software that could pick out bare chalk and wanted to know how much bare chalk was there. So we asked the computer program to look for white areas like this, and then go across the entire image and find out where the bare chalk is. From that, we could work out in 6 years the area had halved of the amount of bare chalk that was available. So it's letting us see how habitats are changing over time. This shows you that imagery. So that's showing you the change from 2010 to 2016 as the vegetation grows back. Just another clever piece of processing here. So we take something like Brampton Wood, an ancient woodland near Huntingdon, and we used this algorithm to pick out where the green conifers were compared to the sort of more brown broadleaf trees in the autumn. And it's not perfect, but it picks out basically the conifers in blue, which is very useful and allows us to then go in and draw manually, unfortunately, around where the conifers are and get a really accurate, can't quite see that very well, but gives these very accurate drawings of where the conifers are in our woodland. And the importance of that is we're trying to get rid of the conifers in Brampton and replace them with native tree species. So it helps us to manage that removal. And after we've done it, we can prove that we've cleared the conifer plantations, and then look at what comes back over time. So that's almost done. Just the last bit is, you know, I see drone use really exciting. Obviously, a massive growth industry. You'll have seen drones appearing all over the place, Jubilee celebrations, Olympics, and things. But for us, it's becoming a routine way of monitoring our nature reserves and our wildlife sites. And it's affordable, it's quick, it's cost effective. The holy grail would be if we could automate a lot more of the processing and say, right, pick out all the trees on this picture, all the grassland on this picture. And that's starting to happen. We're getting there with that, but it's still a lot of manual work to map things, because the human eye is still up there and better than the kind of artificial intelligence. Imagery improving all the time, as you'll have found with digital cameras. The cameras they're putting in drones just getting better and better, and obviously that means the images we're getting, we can see far more detail, and we can start to really pick out habitats in far more detail. So yeah, that's, you know, next thing would be able to it won't be quite as coarse as just, you know, scrub, grass. We'll be able to pick out individual species and things. So it's getting there. And the other thing for me is just making sure, you know, and for any of you, it's like just making sure we build teams of people who can do this and are well skilled and, you know, are sharing information. And that's what I'm trying to do today. and that's what I try and do in our organisation and beyond. So yeah, happy to talk to anybody who wants to talk about drones. Obviously, I can't answer questions today because I'm just appearing in the corner of this talk. But yeah, anybody who wants to talk about this, get in touch via the organisers of this event, and or get in touch with our Wildlife Trust. And I'd obviously ask you to visit the Wildlife Trust's website and find out more. Sign up for our e-news. Join the Wildlife Trust as well. There's plenty of amazing sites to visit, and yeah, lots of stuff to photograph as well. So yes, thank you very much, and thank you for asking me to speak today, and I hope it's been interesting, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.